Welcome to this episode of Safe Home Podcast for struggling teens and their families finding their healing path. I'm Beth Syverson, a mom of an 18-year-old son, Joey, who's been dealing with drug addiction and mental health issues for several years. I am walking beside him as he struggles with his recovery, while I work on my own personal growth and healing. Today, I'll be talking with a Boston-based non-binary musician, Spencer LaJoye. I recently ran across their recent song, the Plowshare Prayer, which a fellow Unitarian Universalist shared on Facebook, and I have listened to that song on repeat ever since. I can hardly explain to you how deeply that song has touched me, and many, many others, because it's gone viral. Anyway, we will be playing Spencer's song in just a bit, but first I wanted to introduce them to you and get you a little backstory about their life, so when you hear the song, it will be even more impactful. So welcome to Safe Home, Spencer. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Beth. I'm really, really honored.
Thank you. Well, and I think one of the things that draws me to your music is that we have so many things in common. We have similar upbringings growing up in the church as musicians and later coming out as queer, although you did it much sooner than I did. I was in my 40s. So
Okay,
got a
sure.
good head start on me there. Thank you. It'll be much better for it, believe me. And part of the purpose of the Plowshare Prayer was to create a prayer for those who've been injured by religious trauma or by religion or religious people in the past, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you in the church and your family situation?
Yeah, so I grew up in, I guess I would describe it as a maybe moderate progressive religious household, actually.
Mhm.
My dad is Catholic and my mom's Presbyterian. And so I was a proud Presbatholic, like the pastor of the Presbyterian church actually came over to the Catholic church to perform my baptism. So I am actually a baptized Presbatholic, and I went to Catholic school through 6th grade and then went to public school and, experienced all the bullying that someone who comes from Catholic school goes through when we go
Oh, a little
to,
bit of hazing, huh?
yeah, for sure. But as far as like religiosity in my household, like in my home, I really, because I had both, because I had this sort of ecumenical upbringing, I really only knew that no matter what our differences were denominationally, I go to Catholic church one week and Presbyterian church the next week, and my mom's different from my dad, but we all just eat together anyway.
Mhm.
It's one table, if you will,
Uh-huh.
and you can take that metaphor wherever you want to
Yeah.
go with it. But so in a lot of ways, that was really, really healthy for me
Mhm.
as a young kid.
Mhm.
I think it changed as I moved into adolescence. But as a young kid, I think all I knew was really like unity and
Ah,
togetherness.
that's how we all wish it would be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Interfaith and all that.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's great. And then in adolescence, did you come to realization that you were gay or had
Uh-huh.
gender issues or?
Yeah, not really so much. And actually, I just came from therapy today. I was just in talking to my therapist about this exact thing, about how I didn't know, but my body knew, and I just sort of ignored my body.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Now that I am more, as an adult, in touch with my body and aware of my dysphoria and aware of some ways that I feel uncomfortable walking through the world and ways that I feel comfortable, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I notice when I have bad days of dysphoria, it feels like I am 16 again. In those days, I'll be
Oh.
doing my grown-up things, I'll be living my grown-up life, and I have this supreme, sometimes panic attack inducing discomfort, sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, that I feel 16 again. But as a 16-year-old, I never would have been able to identify that. And so I'm trying now in my adulthood to validate the feelings that I never allowed myself to feel as a 16-year-old, if
Oh,
that makes
wow.
sense.
Yeah, you're doing the work, the healing work.
Yeah, I'm like
Wow.
looking back and telling myself, wow, that was hard. That was hard. And you
Oh,
were feeling hard things.
yeah.
And you never let yourself feel them, or you never knew that it was an option to feel them. You just thought you were wrong. And so I'm trying to, do the healing work for my younger self now. But all of that is to say, I didn't know when I was a teenager or a preteen. I didn't know that I was non-binary. I didn't know that I was queer.
Were those words even in your vocabulary, or you just didn't identify it as yourself?
Non-binary definitely wasn't. Gay was in my vocabulary. Bisexual was in my vocabulary. And all I knew was that there were kids in my high school who were ostracized. They were like the out gay kids, and they were not popular. And I knew that I didn't feel normal. I always knew that there was something kind of different about me, but I knew that whatever it was, I couldn't be them. Whatever it was, I wasn't that.
Okay. You weren't the outcast type.
Yeah. And
were you popular at school?
I was okay. I was okay. And by the time I got to high school, I was, my parents were both teachers in the high school. So my dad was the band teacher and my mom was the choir teacher.
Oh, wow.
And kids liked them.
Okay.
And so I got to kind of ride on their reputation a little bit.
That worked out.
Yeah, but I was okay. But I was also very Christian. I became evangelical in my teenage
like even more years. Than your parents.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you went to somebody else's church at a certain time.
Yeah, I went to other youth groups. Yeah.
Oh yes, I remember those, the hand raising and the healing, laying on hands, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Speaking in tongues. Did you get that far?
I didn't get that far. No, in my in my training, in my young evangelical training, I never became Pentecostal, but I remember going to the big rock concerts and the conferences. The Baptist youth group in our town would like take field trips there. And we would go, and I remember seeing all of my peers like raising their hands, and I was like, I guess that's what we do. I guess we raise our hands. And then I did it, and it was very uncomfortable, but I did it.
It's powerful. You can see how like Jim Jones can happen, right?
Oh my God.
Just, you get sucked in. It's a group. You feel part of it, and it's very powerful. Usually there's loud music and intense speakers and
well, and that's exactly what drew me to it. Even though my parents didn't necessarily raise me evangelical, when I hit that bullying in middle school, I needed friends. I needed a place to be. I needed simple answers. I needed belonging. And the Christians had that. The evangelical kids gave that to me.
Totally know how to do that.
And they did it well. I felt really loved by them.
Yeah, and it can be wonderful, like permanently, if that's where you like to be. And they do know how to embrace most people. If you the problem I experienced when I was in that is that you had to kind of toe the party line, right? You had to, if you had started questioning the belief or questioning your identity, then all bets are off. Is that the way it was for you too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if you fit right in there, wow. If everything lines up nicely for you, what a great sense of togetherness and connection. Yeah.
If you're cis straight, if you're middle class, yes, you're in a good place.
Yeah. If you don't have an agnostic bone in your body, you're good to go.
I learned. I found my agnostic bones later in like college, and that was rough.
Because you went to a Christian college, right?
Yeah, Calvin. It's university now. Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, that sounds so serious.
It is Calvin of John Calvin.
He's no joke, that guy.
No, he's not. He's very predestination, strict. Very total depravity, very, you're broken from the get-go. And I bought into most of that theology. That's where I got serious, not just about my quote-unquote relationship with Jesus, but I was really into like academic theology then. So I could really convince myself that I was broken.
Right. Get the evidence. That's a good idea. Was that your course of study? Were you in theology for your course of study?
I was a religion. They called it a religion major, but really it was more like biblical studies and Christian theology.
Were you going to be a minister or a religious
educator?
Thought I was.
Wow. I really thought I was. Brought me to seminary later.
You still could be.
Yeah. Well, I could be. I have the degrees now. I went to seminary then, and yeah, maybe down the road I'll pull that degree out of my pocket and use it
So
to be a pastor. But
you do have a seminary degree.
I sure do, Beth.
Wow. So you just aren't ordained or whatever with a
Right.
specific church. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Now, what along this timeline, when did you come out as gay and as non-binary? And was that at the same time or different?
Yeah, it's different times. I came out as bisexual my senior year of college, right before my senior year of college.
How did that
It
go
went,
over?
yeah, you know what? It went okay.
Yeah.
It went okay, not perfectly. I was at a Christian college and I was a religion major, but I will say I found most of the progressive friends that I had and the professors who knew how to think progressively, they were in the religion department.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, that's where they were. And I think it's because we learned how to think forwards and backwards through the texts, and we realized that it is actually, Jesus was like a radical. But
yeah.
regardless, coming out to my friends and family, it was awkward. They didn't know how to respond, but none of them ostracized me. They did very well.
Oh, good.
My family was okay. My parents, they did the typical. I apologize for my growling dog over here. This is her space, you know. That's what you're hearing. Yeah.
Hi, Peppers.
Hi, Rory.
Aww.
Okay, baby. Okay.
Are they protecting you, or is that just like
she's protecting me from the scary neighbors doing their laundry?
Well, we need to do that.
Somebody's got to do it. My parents, you know, there's the typical, we don't want your life to be harder, and we are afraid of your life being harder because of this. And, you know, I would say that they are partially correct in that as an LGBTQ person, your life is just, that's the world we live in. Our lives are just going to be harder in some ways.
Definitely.
And it is exponentially harder to not be out.
Yeah. So to pretend to be something you're not the whole rest of your life is really, really, really hard. It's very taxing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that. And at the time, you know, I said I was bisexual, and I think that they were holding out hope that I would end up with a man and everything would be fine and we could kind of just forget this whole thing happened. And when Whitney and I came out as a couple to my family, Whitney's my wife, that was a lot harder. That was a lot harder.
Because they're like, oh, there goes our dreams of this wedding and the babies and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's real now. And we communicated. We were very avoidant in our conflict, both of us, both myself and my parents. There was a lot of emails sent back and forth. There was a lot of poor, like, missed signals and misinterpreted signals and mind reading, you know, it's like you're not supposed to do in healthy relationships. And a lot of sort of over-sexualizing me. And I talk about this now, and you should know that all of the stuff about my sexuality, my parents now we've apologized and moved on, so I can talk about this.
Okay, good.
They love Whitney and she's part of the family. But
good.
It was a lot of telling me that, you know, just because I'm bisexual and just because I'm with a woman doesn't mean that any rules are different, and that we, as my parents' children, are not allowed to have sex under my parents' roof if we ever visit. And it was a lot of this sort of going through the rules. And I was like, ooh. But when I came out, when Whitney and I came out as a couple, my parents they saw me differently all of a sudden. At least that's how I felt. They saw me as a morally different person.
Do you think they couldn't get the image out of their head of their daughter having sex with a woman?
Right.
Like,
I think probably. I think it was probably this very, just, I think it's an image, right? It's like the dreams that they have for me, the image they paint for me. Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't relate necessarily, but I can imagine as their child. At that time, I remember I kept trying to have grace for them by thinking, you know what? The only people who have had dreams for me longer than I've had dreams for me are my parents.
Yeah.
And now I'm telling them to change course. And that's harder for them than it is for me. They've had this dream for longer.
Yeah, before you were born, I'm sure.
Right.
It is true. And speaking as a parent, I've had to give up every dream I ever had for my child,
Mm.
not regarding queerness, but regarding just living because he's
Yeah.
so caught up in addiction right now. Just like right now, I'm just happy if he survives. But that's taken a journey. And at first I was like hanging on. All right, buddy, you can get it. You can do this. Come on, I'll pull you through. I'll help you. Just because I didn't want to let that go. So I totally understand that. And
Yeah.
parents need to let go.
Yeah.
Parents need to let go. We are separate beings. We're separate. It feels like we're all one thing when we are kind of in a way unified as a family, but our children are separate from us. They have their own path, and I hope that that becomes more popular to do as the generations go on, to let our children be who they are.
To differentiate.
Yeah, in whatever ways, queer or whatever, if they want to be an engineer instead of a doctor or whatever, an artist,
Right.
heaven forbid.
Yeah. Yeah. we're flaky. Unreliable artists. I tried to repaint it for my parents, and it only worked to a certain extent, but to reframe it as, embracing new dreams.
Yeah.
And
it might be better than they ever dreamed it would be.
Yeah. The real turning point that I felt with my parents was when they started asking me about Whitney. When they started expressing curiosity and saying, okay, well, tell us about her. What do you like about her? What, and that felt like an embrace rather than a defense.
Oh, that's so great. I love when families grow together.
I know.
When people shift, that curiosity, that's one of my favorite words, is curiosity. Just, what is it like? Why, what draws you to that decision? Or what do you think is going to happen? There's just asking those questions it just opens it up. Ask open-ended questions and find out, maybe they're not, horrible decisions being made, or maybe it's not nefarious, or maybe it's not against you, or, maybe it's completely reasonable in somebody else's head, and we can connect that way.
Yeah. And it's not even just, I think that as a queer person, I have had to embrace curiosity for myself, and about my body. And that is a stance now that comes a little bit more naturally to me. Like, that's curious how it feels that way today. But the place where my queerness interfaces with some harmful theologies that I had in the past was that I found those theologies because I wanted answers. And I clung to those answers for dear life. The answer was that I was inherently sinful. The answer was that I was born to mess up. But when I mess up, God's grace is there. I became very addicted to my shame because that was that feeling is to be expected when your humanity encounters God, right?
Oh, definitely.
Those were the answers. And so to embrace my queerness at all, I had to start saying, well, what if those aren't answers?
Wow, that took a lot of introspection and insight. Wow.
Yeah.
There's a real thing called internalized homophobia. Is that what you're talking about?
I think so. Yeah.
Where,
Yeah.
Even though you're queer in whatever letter of the alphabet you are, you still hate yourself for being queer because it's not the way it's supposed to go. It's not the typical way people go. And so, and our culture has done a really good job of making queer people outcasts and threatened literally with their lives. And it's getting better. Do you think it's getting better?
I think
we just had the thing in Texas. So, okay, so maybe it's not getting better.
I know. I think the sign that it's getting better is that there is more backlash. I think, it's like every action, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction.
That's true.
And so I think the more visible that we get, the more defensive the naysayers are going to be.
Yes. We got to keep fighting though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you came out as bisexual in college and let that stew, got a girlfriend, got married. And then when did you come out as non-binary?
Yeah, it wasn't until years later. I think it was 2018, and it started with pronouns. I went on a tour to the Pacific Northwest, and I thought, well, this is going to be. I'm in a place that I've never been before, with people I won't see in everyday life. I'm going to try some new pronouns. I'm just going to try. So at some shows in Portland, that in front of people I didn't know, I was like, my pronouns are they, them. And people interacted with me with they, them pronouns before and after the show. And I got to sort of see how that felt.
Okay. How does it feel? Especially at first.
It felt real good.
Yeah.
It felt weird, but like expansive. Like it was like exciting. It felt new. And so I brought it home to Whitney and to my therapist and to my close friends, and we started using it kind of like privately, like our little secret. And then I announced it to the world. And I would say for a solid year, it took me that long to kind of get used to hearing those pronouns for myself.
Wow.
But they felt good. And, it's change.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. It took you a year, because I'm still stumbling over my pronouns. I mispronoun people all the time by accident. But if you even took a year to get kind of used to it, well, no wonder we're having trouble too.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and it feels good.
Yeah.
It's just a huge shift. Yeah, it took me a while. Even though I knew it was good, every time that somebody used the right pronouns, I was like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
So your whole life, did you feel neither male nor female, or were you kind of a tomboy?
Yeah, this is kind of exciting to talk about. I just made a Patreon blog post about this. From a really young age, people were asking me, are you a boy or a girl?
Oh.
And I remember the first time that it felt terrible was in 7th grade, like my first week of school. And the only friends I had were from that private Catholic elementary school. We were sitting at a lunch table together, and a girl named Brittany,
of course,
walked up.
Of course, this girl named Brittany. I know this girl. I know.
Yeah, of course you do. We all know this girl. She walks up to our lunch table, looks directly at me, and says, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I was just petrified. I wanted to just crawl out of my skin. And a friend at my table answered for me, like, "Yo, she's a girl, dummy," whatever these 7th graders say. And but it happened again when in my 8th grade year. I was in jazz band, and we were at festival, and there was a jazz band judge who came to work with us after our performance. And I was sitting back on the drum set, and I was wearing a pink button-down shirt, and my hair was long and curly, and this was the most femme I could get. And this judge looks back and gives me a note and calls me the young man on the drum set in front of the entire middle school jazz band. And again, I was just so embarrassed. And it's only recent, and this happened again and again. My nieces and nephews, people at work still, they'll call me gentleman and then a lady. And it doesn't matter how I present. It doesn't matter what my hair is. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing, which is interesting. It's actually not these outer cues that people are picking up on. They're like picking up on something inherent. And it's only very recently that I've realized that when I was younger, I was so embarrassed by these interactions, not because people were seeing me wrong, but because they were getting it right. Yes. They were outing me before I knew it about myself. Wow. They were outing me before I was ready.
Wow.
I think that's my current interpretation of those events. Yeah.
Like it was cutting too close to the bone. Like, ooh, that truth is too hard for me to deal with. That's too big for me right now.
I'm not ready for it.
Yeah. What do you think it would take for a 7th grader to be ready to be outed as non-binary, where that'd be like, yeah, I guess that's what I am? I mean, what would that take for our culture to shift that much?
Visibility in the adults in their lives.
Yeah.
And in the media that they're consuming.
Yeah.
And visibility. Absolutely. I mean, like we were saying earlier, I just didn't even know it was an option. I didn't know it was a word. I just spent so long feeling like something was not right.
Yeah.
About my body and about myself in it. And so long just dissociate, just totally being a disembodied person.
Yeah. Do you feel like just a head sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have body dysphoria too for different reasons, but yeah, I could totally just live with just my head and my fingers. The rest of it can just go, I don't care.
Yes.
It's terrible. I'm working on that too, but it's really a terrible feeling to just be embodied. I mean, this is where our soul gets to live for however long our life is, and to just not feel at home in it. It's really torturous.
And you know what would have helped me, I think, is instead of grown-ups in my life, I'm just going to call them grown-ups because I'm just pretending I'm a middle schooler, but instead of grown-ups in my life explaining to me what was going to happen to my body in adolescence, saying, instead of them just explaining it to me and telling me what it meant and what it should mean and how exciting it would be that these changes were going to happen, they could say, these things are probably going to happen. I mean, they will happen. And when they happen, I want to talk about how it feels because it could feel a lot of different ways. And I want to talk about how it feels with you. And there's no wrong way for it to feel.
Oh, I'm getting the shivers from that. Wouldn't that be amazing if kids heard that? Wow.
Yeah, because as soon as I was uncomfortable when my body started changing and things started happening, I dissociated, and I honestly, but I ignored what was happening in my body so much that I actually ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks in my freshman year of college. I had a particularly heavy period, and my whole adult life of being a person who menstruated, I did not talk about it. I did not think about it. I just let it happen to me. I knew it would be over. And so when this one oddity of a period happened to me, I didn't talk about it. I didn't think about it. I don't remember the lead up into the hospital. I remember it being harder for me to go up the stairs. I remember it being harder for me to walk to class. I remember missing my alarm in the mornings because I was sleeping through them, and that's very uncharacteristic. And then I remember not being able to stand up to sing a hymn at church on a Sunday morning when I was home visiting family from school. And my dad saying, "You look pale. Let's just take you in and look." And we took me in to urgent care, and they could barely draw any blood out of me.
Whoa.
And my hemoglobin was a healthy level for a person that age. It's 12 to 16. The hemoglobin, the thing that carries oxygen through your blood to the rest of your body, it was at a 5.5. It was half of what it should have been. So I wasn't getting oxygen. They told me that. Said, "You're highly anemic." I passed right out. And then I was in the hospital for a couple weeks.
Wow.
But I did not know what was happening to me because, and I don't want to, I mean, that is just dysphoria. But I didn't know that it was dysphoria. I just thought, whatever my body is doing, it's not happening. It is not happening because that is not my body.
Yeah.
That is not what my body does.
Yeah.
And I wish there had been grown-ups early on who would have said, your body is going to do this, but it can mean a lot of different things, and we can reframe it, and we can talk about it, and you can be uncomfortable, but let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean you're a woman. It can just mean that you're a body that menstruates.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a good goal for future generations.
Yeah.
Too late for us, but
oh no.
But we can help other people and younger people and even grown-ups to start to get to know their own body, perhaps, and to become more accepting of, or not more accepting maybe, but more curious and more introspective about what's going on with our body.
A friendly observer to what you feel about your body.
Oh, you must be thirsty. Let me get you something to drink.
Yes. Or that didn't feel good. I wonder why that didn't feel good. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, our body tries to tell us. Our body, what I've learned from studying trauma these last couple of years with my son is that your body knows way before your mind. Your body is the one that holds the trauma. It's not your mind. So people that get things like chronic fatigue and cancer and these big kind of overriding illnesses, many times, not all the time, but many times is trauma just speaking. And we don't listen to it for a long time. And then I said, I'm going to get a little louder right now because you're not listening to me. So it's a fascinating area. And I suppose that someone that is non-binary has to dig into this deeper than other people that are cis or that don't realize that they're non-binary yet.
Yeah, or yeah, just anybody who experiences dysphoria. I mean, because there are cis people who experience dysphoria, like you said, and there are non-binary and trans people who don't really experience much dysphoria, physical dysphoria. And I just think it would do us all a lot of good to be able to, like you said, it's such a cultural thing to sculpt and force our bodies to be certain things for us. And I just wonder how much better off we would be if we listened to what our bodies needed from us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain to us the difference between trans and non-binary?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So non-binary just fits underneath this big trans umbrella. So the trans umbrella is vast and massive, and it just means that you don't in some way exclusively identify with the sex that you were assigned at birth, right? This binary sex model, which is also problematic. But right. And so you could be gender fluid and you would technically be trans. You could be non-binary and you're technically trans. You can be a binary trans person and trans. So non-binary just sort of fits under the umbrella. And non-binary doesn't mean androgynous necessarily. It doesn't mean halfway between boy or girl. I like to describe it as a color wheel. So if girl is arbitrarily pink and boy is arbitrarily blue, that doesn't mean that non-binary is purple. We can be green, we can be orange, we can be yellow, we can be red, we can be, any sort of thing on the color wheel. Yeah. I like to think of myself as green, honestly.
Green,
but
okay. And it could change day to day, or would that be more gender fluid people that change a lot?
Yeah, gender fluid, and that can also be considered trans. Yeah.
Awesome. I love all of it. I love that people seem to be finding where they fit a lot better nowadays, the younger kids. And I think there's no downside to it, except for all the horrible backlash that we're getting for it.
Right.
But
yeah, well,
the pain that the culture brings, but the authenticity piece, what's the problem? I really, truly don't understand what people's problem is with people's gender identities. It boggles my mind.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's envy. I think it's jealousy, because it's us, finding the truth about ourselves. Yes. That's when one person steps into their power, that's intimidating. That's envious.
It is. I bet that's a big piece of it. Because how many people do you think live like on the outer edges of the binary? Right. How many people are like 100% male or 100% female? Very few,
I just
right?
Can't. Yeah.
Very few.
I can't. Yeah.
Almost everybody has some mix of both. Maybe someday we'll just throw the whole binary out the window and just say we are what we are.
That'd be cool.
That would be good.
That'd be cool. We're just like humans, right?
Yeah. There's some languages that really have to adjust, though. A lot of languages, their whole language is built around the gender binary, so that'd be tough.
That's true. But then there are some others that don't have like gendered pronouns, at all.
I think Persian is like that. Yes.
Yeah. Like learning how to use them is weird.
Yes. So, it's such a fascinating topic.
It is.
How often do you think about it? Like every day, do you think, I'm non-binary and this is stressful and this world is not fit for me? And no,
I don't think about it as being stressful very often.
Okay.
There are like days when I'm feeling really dysphoric and like out of my body. Those days I have to think more intentionally about it. I am really fortunate that I live like on the East Coast. And so I am out at work. I'm out everywhere. And it's very accepted to be a they, them out here. And so life is not harder for me out here. Good. Just to be honest. I think about the joy that it brings me a lot.
Okay. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I am so happy to hear that. So you just feel more at home.
Oh, yeah. I do. Wow. I do. Yeah. I think about my younger self a lot. I think about having compassion for them. So that's so funny. Yeah. I very rarely think about how hard it is to be non-binary now. And I think a lot about how much discomfort I had in my past that I'm trying to heal now retroactively.
And if you had been able to live into your non-binariness way back then, how much pain could have been avoided?
Yeah.
not that you can never go back, but maybe for people who are listening, and if their kid is like talking a little bit about gender or like testing the waters,
Right.
hey mom, I wonder if blank. Let's see.
Mhm.
Let's just see.
Yeah,
See
explore.
if we can let the kids be who they are right away, so they have less therapy bills.
Yeah.
Unraveling it all later on.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's like so much like misinformation going on, like about, you know, kids and the irreversible damage that it does to let them explore these things. It's just not
A
true.
lot of fear mongering out there.
Yeah,
Well, I think your story is very inspiring, and you can just hear the joy and the comfort that you have now.
Oh.
And I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. And I'd like to talk about your song a little bit, the Plowshare
Sure.
Prayer.
Yeah.
For those that don't know what a plowshare is, can you explain the title?
Yeah, it's a gardening tool. So it breaks open the ground so that things can grow. So it's not like hardened earth anymore. And there's a Bible verse in Isaiah that talks about like it's a dream of a future where people are beating their swords into plowshares, and that's where it came from, is this idea of taking things that have been used to hurt us in the past and using them as a tool for growth. And notably, a plowshare, it does involve a breaking open, right? It's not just like, it doesn't just feel good. It's like we have to look at the hardness of our hearts a little bit. Yeah. We have to do some excavation in order for some softness to emerge, in order for something better to grow in its place. And so I knew that people hearing the song, it would feel a little bit, not painful in a bad way, but painful in a growing kind of way.
Oh, yes. Well, I have shed many, many a tear listening to your song, but I am very grateful for those tears. You named something that I didn't even know existed, that if prayer has been used as a sword against you, yeah, that's pretty heavy. And then you've got several lines. If you haven't heard the song yet, we'll play it in a little bit, but the song lists many different types of people that are praying, right?
Yeah.
And just many different groups, a lot of out groups, the addicts, and the line that gets me every single time regarding my son is, and if you don't want healing, I pray for peace.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Because you can't force someone to be healed. You can't will it to them. They have to want to be healed. So if you're not ready to be healed yet, I pray for peace for you. And there's just so many lines that are like, oh, there it is. Oh gosh, that one too. Oh yes, that too. Oh, and I've shared that song with so many people. I don't know. I'm curious how far that song is going to go. I know it's already gone viral, but I just feel like that song is going to change the world, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did it pour out of you like in one fell swoop, or was it a crafting of the poetry?
It came pretty fast. I was working for a church at the time, and my job for them was to write music for their worship gatherings. And it was becoming increasingly hard for me to write music for them because I was compromising a bit of myself, because I didn't necessarily believe all the things that they believed anymore. And they're very good people. They're still very good friends of mine. I believe in what the church does. But in order to write songs that were meaningful to them and to me, I was compromising a lot. And there was a prayer service coming up, and I needed to write a prayer song. I knew, and I had put it off. And I just sat down and I thought, I don't pray anymore. I cannot, this is where it's going to be hard. I can't write a prayer song without really compromising myself and where I am right now. And that's not okay. So how do I do this in a way that doesn't compromise myself and my beliefs, and just where I am right now? And so I started doing a little free write, and I realized, I was like, what the problem is that I don't pray anymore because prayer has hurt me and people like me. And then I was like, prayer hasn't just hurt me and people like me. It's hurt people like that, and people like that, and people like that, and people like that. I was like, so I wonder if I can write a prayer that's not a prayer, that is a prayer
Yeah.
for all of us.
All of us. And you list, I don't think there's anyone in the whole wide world that isn't on your list somewhere.
Well, I tried. I tried.
Yeah.
I think the first lines that came to me, I was out walking my dog, and the first lines that came into my head were, I pray that if you go all day being brave, that you can go home, go to bed feeling safe.
Oh,
And
yes.
I was like, all right, there's a starting point.
Yes.
And then I slept on it, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had to write more groups of people on my notepad. And the next morning, I threw all the lyrics together and did a one-take video, posted it on the internet.
And that video went viral. And then you recently made a studio album out of it, which is beautiful. And then you also made a live video of it with better microphone or whatever, like a
much
real
better
setup, and not just like, oh, I'm going to throw this on Facebook real quick. So so now it's out there in 3 different ways.
It is. Yeah, it's just, and other people have recorded like videos and covers of it. Somebody did it in Swedish.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, it's going around the world. I am so excited. Yeah. This song really needs to be heard by everyone. It'll hit you one way or another. I promise you. And I remember reading the Facebook comments. I got it, like I said, through UU channels. It's gone through the UU world for sure. And I read somebody else said, nice song, but what is a nice Christian person like you using the word queer for? And I'm like, oh, really? Are we going to have to go here? And your response was so brilliant. You said, well, that is a major part of the reason I'm writing this song. That word is staying in there.
Yeah, right. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, and if I didn't identify as queer, I probably wouldn't have put that word in, but because I do, I'm allowed to say it.
Yeah.
And I will.
Yeah. That's an important word. And I know that it hurts some people that are much older than both of us. Right. That word has been so damaging to them that's tough for them to hear. And I'm not exactly sure what to do about that.
Yeah.
Just honor that, respect that.
And I do. Yeah, obviously.
But the younger people, it's a much better word than LGBTQIA plus whatever. It's just, it's quicker.
It's quicker and it's reclaiming.
Yes.
It is honestly, it is the spirit of Plowshare Prayer, right? It's like using this thing that has hurt us before and saying it won't anymore.
Yes.
It's ours now.
Yes. Well, why don't we listen to your song and let everybody hear it? And then I want y'all to go buy it off of all of the places where you can stream music. Go listen to it, watch it on YouTube. And, but let's listen to it together right now.
Dear blessed Creator, dear Mother, dear Savior, dear Father, dear Brother, dear Holy Other, dear Sibling, dear Baby, dear Patiently Waiting, dear Sad and Confused, dear Stuck and Abused, dear End of your rope, dear Worn Out and Broke, dear Going Alone, dear Running from Home, dear Righteously Angry, forsaken by family, dear Jaded and Quiet, dear Tough and Defiant, I pray that I'm heard, and I pray that this works. I pray if a prayer has been used as a sword against you and your heart, against you and your word, I pray that this prayer is a plowshare of sorts, that it might break you open, it might you grow. I pray that your body gets all that it needs. And if you don't want healing, I just pray for peace. I pray that your burden gets lighter each day. I pray the mean voice in your head goes away. I pray that you honor the grief as it comes. I pray you can feel all the life in your lungs. I pray that if you go all day being brave, that you can go home, go to bed feeling safe. I pray you're forgiven. I pray you forgive. I pray you set boundaries and openly live. I pray that you feel you are worth never leaving. I pray that you know I will always believe you. I pray that you're hurt, and I pray that this works. Amen. On behalf of the last and the least, on behalf of the anxious, depressed, and unseen. Amen. For the workers, the hungry, the houseless. Amen. For the lonely and recently spouseless. Amen. For the queers and their closeted peers. Amen. For the bullied who hold in their tears. Amen. For the mothers of little black sons. Amen. For the kids who grow up scared of guns. Amen. For the addicts, the ashamed and hungover. Amen. For the callous, the wise and the sober. Amen. For the ones who want life to be over. Amen. For the leaders who lose their composure. Amen. For the parents who just lost their baby. Amen. For the chronically ill and disabled. Amen. For the children down at the border. Amen. For the victims of our law and order. I pray that you're heard, and I pray that this works. I pray if a prayer has been used as a sword against you and your heart, against you and your word, I pray that this prayer is a plowshare of sorts.
That song is so amazing. I'm sure you all had all the feels like I still do every time I hear that. Spencer, how can we best support you going forward? What can we do to make the
honestly,
Spencer world happen?
honestly, as silly as it sounds, a follow on social media, just so because I post where I'm going to be playing. That's helpful.
Mhm.
And we can just connect there. And I read every comment and I love everybody. And then if you have $1 a month to spare, Patreon, patreon.com is where I post all of my innermost musings from my therapy to the page. And so, so I hope we can connect even better there. But yeah.
I love Patreon. We have Patreon too. And I love it.
Yeah.
It's like the old fashioned way of supporting artists. You know,
Yeah,
just
it's patronage.
go right to the artist. Let's avoid, giving money to all these other millionaires. Let's just give it to the artist, show them that you appreciate what they're doing, and get a little bit of goodies from it. You know, you provide all sorts of, your blog is on there,
Yep.
you know, early releases or whatever. And
Yep, I have like little like meditative sort of videos. I have early releases, brand new songs,
nice.
Early releases of like official songs. I give them to patrons first, and
Nice.
it's honestly just it's a place that feels more like family
Yeah. So
than social media.
Yeah, yes, because people are choosing to be in that group with you. They're saying,
Right.
"Here, put my hat in this ring. I want to be involved in this."
Right.
That's
Yeah.
great. And you are wanting to tour some more, right?
Yes. I've got some things booked for this summer already, and I'm working on dates in other cities. But yeah, so this summer and early fall, I'll be around the country.
We really hope you come to Southern California. You got a place if you get down this direction. Oh, we would love to have you. And we will all support you as much as we can. Your music is really, really important. You're just being your authentic self. Take away the music. You're just being alive, and being your authentic self is so important. And then you add the musical talent, which we have hardly even talked about on this pod, but it's amazing. You really have a voice out there, and it's really important for people to hear.
That's really sweet. Thank you. Thanks for doing what you do on this podcast too.
Oh.
It's very, very special and very important. So thank you.
Thank you. I hope my big goal for this is to destigmatize all of the things that are keeping people back from being who they really are. So, and I know my son, he really actually was hoping to be here today. So he says hello, and he would love to meet you someday too.
Of course. When I come to Southern California.
When you come, definitely. And let's wrap it up here. Please support Safe Home Podcast too. We have Patreon. All the links for all of these things will be in the notes, by the way. Patreon, all the social media places. We put our podcast on YouTube as well. And we really appreciate everybody listening and taking the time to learn some new things and to open up our minds even more. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We love you all. And Spencer and I want you to stay safe.